On Christmas, my brother ditched his kids, freezing on my doorstep and flew off to watch the auroras, knowing I was out of state. My neighbor found them shivering. CPS took over, and my parents immediately blamed me for ruining the holiday. Hey, Reddit! Thought I cut ties with my family's nonsense years ago, but then my brother dumped his kids on my doorstep while I was out of state, and everything went downhill fast. Here's how it all exploded. My name is Edward. I'm in my late 30s, single, no kids, and honestly pretty happy that way. I work as an interpreter and translator, mostly subtitling movies and TV shows. English, Spanish, French, those three languages pay my bills and eat most of my time. People think subtitling is some cushy job where you just sit there and type, but it's more like a battle against nonstop deadlines, picky studios, and audio that sounds like it was recorded underwater. Most of the work is done alone, which I prefer. Long hours, quiet room, no interruption. Peace is the only way I can function. Peace, unfortunately, is something my family never learned how to spell. My older brother Oscar has been the golden child since before I could walk. The guy could set a trash can on fire in our living room, and our parents, Patrick and Madeline, would call it creative curiosity. Meanwhile, if I breathed too loud, I was the problem child who needed to respect the rules. Anna, his wife, fits in perfectly. Acts like everyone else is staff working under her. If you told her the sky was blue, she'd tell you that you're privileged for saying so. That kind of person. Growing up, Christmas morning was the easiest way to see the favoritism out in the open. Oscar would get whatever he asked for. Game consoles, expensive jackets, brand name everything. I'd get socks or a sweater 2 sizes too big, and Mom would pretend it was exactly what I wanted. If Oscar broke something, I was blamed. If I succeeded at something, it was treated like an accident. If he failed at something, they'd rewrite the story until he looked like a hero. It was a constant pattern, and it never ended. Adulthood only made it louder. My job, according to them, isn't real work. Patrick once said that subtitles write themselves, and Madeline claimed I was just sitting around watching TV all day. Meanwhile, Oscar could be unemployed for half a year, and he'd still be described as working on some big opportunities. Anytime something needed to be handled, I was expected to be available. Moving furniture, picking someone up from the airport, fixing a computer, helping with bills. If I said no, I was ungrateful. If Oscar said no, he was just tired. Nothing ever changed, not 1 inch. By early December, New York was already freezing. Streets coated in pale snow, the usual Christmas lights hanging off brownstones, whole blocks quieter than usual because half the neighborhood goes out of town. I'd settle into my usual winter routine. Work, gym, groceries, sleep. Simple life, no chaos. At least that's what I try to aim for. One night, while I was finishing a translation for a French crime documentary, I got the email. A client needed me in person for a short-notice winter project. Tight deadlines, international partners, extremely time-sensitive. The kind of job you don't turn down unless you enjoy being broke. They wanted me on site in a few days. Flights attached, schedule laid out, everything confirmed. As soon as I read it, I knew it was going to be messy. Not the job was fine. My family, Christmas season with those people always comes with some level of chaos. But this year felt different, heavier, like something stupid was already forming in the air and just waiting to fall on my head. I stared at the email again, closed my laptop, and sat back. I couldn't explain it, but I had this sharp, simple thought. This Christmas is going to get ugly. And unfortunately, I was absolutely right. Patrick and Madeline's house looked the same as always in December. Too many lights, plastic snowmen on the lawn, and a wreath big enough to cover a car windshield. I pulled up, sat there for a second, and reminded myself I was only doing this because skipping would start a lecture that would last until spring. Inside, the house hit me with the usual chaos. Patrick was already complaining about the thermostat the second I walked in. Madeline turned it up again, he said, tapping the screen like it offended him. We're not heating the entire neighborhood. Madeline didn't look up from rearranging plates. Maybe if you wore something warmer instead of that same jacket every year, you wouldn't freeze. It's a normal jacket, I said, hanging it up. She gave me a look like I had personally ruined Christmas by existing. Oscar and Anna were on the couch. Oscar was talking loudly about something he bought himself. Anna sat beside him, scrolling on her phone with an expression that said she'd rather be anywhere else, except she chose to be exactly here. Hey, Ed, Oscar called. You finally made it. We were taking bets. Anna added, I said you'd be late because you were busy typing subtitles. Do subtitles have deadlines? Didn't think so. I didn't bother replying. If I wasted energy correcting every stupid comment these people made, I'd die young. Timothy and Lucia were at the table drawing snowflakes on scrap paper. They glanced at me, gave small smiles, then went back to being quiet. Smart kids. Silence is the safest survival tactic in this family. Madeline told everyone to sit, and we gathered for dinner. Immediately, the atmosphere turned into the usual mess. Patrick ranting about how everything tastes different now, because people don't cook like they used to. Oscar bragging about how he might start a business soon. Anna complaining about her hairdresser, and Madeline pushing passive-aggressive comments about how some people don't visit enough. I focused on my plate and waited for the part where they asked me for something. It didn't take long. Halfway through the meal, Oscar cleared his throat dramatically. "So guess what? Big news." Madeline gasped before he even said anything. "Oscar, what is it? Are you finally doing that career breakthrough?" "No," he said proudly. "Better. Anna and I are taking a trip. Finland. Or maybe Norway. Haven't decided which route yet. We're going to see the Auroras." Anna chimed in. "We deserve something special. This year has been exhausting." Patrick practically clapped. "My son! Taking charge of life! That's what I like to see." Madeline placed a hand over her chest like Oscar had announced he'd become a surgeon. "You two work so hard. You really need this." Timothy and Lucia looked up quietly, but neither said anything. I let them finish their victory lap before I spoke. "I'm traveling too. Got an urgent job. I'll be gone during that same week." Nobody reacted, not even a nod. Finally, Anna said, "Oh, that's convenient timing, I guess." She kept eating like she hadn't actually heard me. Oscar shrugged. "Don't overhype it, Ed. People travel. It's normal." Patrick said, "Is this one of those little office things again?" "It's not an office thing," I answered. "I'll be on site for a project, working with 3 studios. Tight deadlines. I'll be completely unavailable while I'm gone." They all nodded vaguely, the kind of nods people give when they're not listening at all. Oscar glanced at his phone. Anna was already scrolling again. It was like talking to a wall with Wi-Fi. Dinner continued with their usual nonsense until Patrick decided to pick at me again. "So, Edward," he said, waving his fork, "you never step up for the family. Oscar and Anna have so much on their plates, and you just float around doing your own thing." Anna made a dramatic sigh, like she'd been carrying bricks all year. Oscar leaned back, satisfied. I kept my voice steady. "I'm not a babysitter. I've said that since day one." Patrick frowned. "You should help more. Your brother has real responsibilities." I stared at him. "Then he should handle them." Silence fell for a second, the first real one of the night. Madeline broke it with a brittle laugh. "Let's not start something. It's Christmas." I didn't say anything else. No point. The more I pushed back, the more they pretended I was attacking them. Dessert felt like eating through fog. Everyone acted like nothing happened, but the tension sat in the room, like a heavy coat nobody wanted to take off. When I finally stepped outside, the cold air felt cleaner than anything inside that house. Snow was falling lightly, the street quiet except for distant cars. I got into my car, shut the door, and exhaled. The whole drive home, one thought stayed clear in my head. This family was a ticking time bomb. They were going to pull something stupid. It was just a matter of when. I was sitting in my hotel room surrounded by open documents, headphones on, subtitles stretched across my second monitor. 3 languages, 3 deadlines, and 1 bad Wi-Fi connection. It was a mess. I wasn't thinking about home at all. I was buried in work, focused on getting through a stack of dialogue before midnight. That's when my phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID, Mrs. Morgan. She's been my neighbor since I first moved into that building. Older lady, sharp eyes, always has a scarf wrapped twice around her neck even in October. She doesn't miss anything. She never calls me unless something real is happening. Not drama, not gossip, real emergencies. I answered instantly. "Edward, honey," she said, her voice tight. "Are you home?" "No," I replied. "I'm out of state for work. What's wrong?" There was a pause, like she wasn't sure how to start. Then she dropped it all at once. "Honey, your brother's children were sitting on your front steps for almost 2 hours. 2 hours in this cold. I found them shaking." I stood up so fast the chair hit the wall. "What? Why were they there?" "Because Oscar and that wife of his dropped them off at your door," she said. "They told the kids you were inside. Then they left, drove away. Those poor things kept ringing your doorbell." My stomach tightened. "You're sure they were there that long?" "I watched them through my window at first," she said. "I thought you were home and just not at the door yet. They had their coats and hats on, so at first it looked like they would go inside any second. I did not want to interfere if a parent was about to open the door, but time kept passing, and they were still out there. After a long while, they started really shivering, and the snow was picking up. I went outside to check, and Timothy said you were not answering. Lucia could barely talk, Edward." I pressed my hand against my forehead. "Are they okay now?" "They're inside my house," she said. "I wrapped them in blankets and turned the heat up. Made them warm drinks. Their hands were ice cold when they came in. They were confused and embarrassed, but they told me exactly what happened. I swallowed hard. Tell me. She didn't sugarcoat anything. They said Oscar pulled up around 3 o'clock, she explained. Told them you'd be home. They knocked and waited. Knocked again. Then they waited more. He never checked if you answered. He never stayed to see if you opened the door. He just left them there. I closed my eyes for a second and said nothing. She continued, voice rising with anger. 2 children sitting outside in freezing weather because their parents didn't bother to confirm you were even home? I can't believe this. I paced the room once, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you for bringing them in. Thank you for calling me. Edward, this is serious, she said. They could have gotten sick. Something bad could have happened. I don't know what kind of people your brother and his wife are, but this is neglect. I know, I said quietly. She lowered her voice. Do you want me to stay here with them until someone comes? I'm not sending them back out there. Yes, please. Keep them safe until I figure out what to do next. Of course I will, she said. They're sitting here on my couch right now under 2 blankets each. They're warming up. Lucia stopped shivering, finally. Timothy keeps asking if he's in trouble. He's not, I said. None of this is their fault. There was a brief moment of silence before she asked, Where are Oscar and Anna? Did they tell you anything? They're flying to Finland or Norway for vacation. Mrs. Morgan let out a short, angry breath. They went overseas and dumped their children on a doorstep? Yeah, I don't even have words for that. I checked the time. I checked my emails. I checked my flight schedule. Nothing lined up with me getting back fast enough to handle this in person. My pulse felt too steady, cold, calculated, not panicked. It was the kind of clarity that shows up when you realize a line has been crossed so far, you can't even see it anymore. Mrs. Morgan, I said, I appreciate you more than you know. Thank you for stepping in. You don't need to thank me, she replied. I did what any decent adult would do. Those poor kids were abandoned. I'll take care of the next steps, I told her. Stay with them for now. Make sure they stay warm. I'll call you back shortly. All right, Edward. I'll be here. We hung up, and I stood in the middle of my hotel room staring at the wall, not because I didn't know what to do, because I knew exactly what needed to happen next. Oscar wasn't just careless. Anna wasn't just entitled. They had crossed into something else entirely. I picked up my phone again and found Oscar's name. Time to hear what excuse he thought would save him. Dude, this better be important, he said. We're at JFK. They just started pre-boarding. What did you do with your kids? I asked. He exhaled sharply. What are you talking about now? Timothy and Lucia, I said. You left them sitting on my steps in this weather. Mrs. Morgan found them freezing. They are at her place. There was a pause, but not the kind that comes from shock. More like irritation. Oh, come on, he said. Seriously? We just sat down. They're about to call our group. Why were your kids at my door? I asked. We dropped them off, he replied. You weren't answering earlier, but we figured you were inside. You never go anywhere. I told you at dinner I'd be out of state, I said. Oscar scoffed. You said something vague. You always make everything sound way more dramatic than it is. In the background, Anna said loudly, Is that your brother causing problems already? Oscar put me on speaker. Yeah, he's freaking out about the kids. Anna's tone sharpened. Edward, why are you making this a thing? They were at your house. It's not like you live in the woods. They were outside in the cold for 2 hours, I said. Mrs. Morgan said they were shivering. Oh my God, Anna muttered. 2 hours? You act like that's years. Kids survive worse. I clenched my jaw. Why didn't you call me? We were rushing, Oscar said. Traffic was crazy. Security lines were packed. We didn't have time for a whole conversation. You had time to dump your kids and walk away, I said. We assumed you would open the door eventually, he snapped. Why were you not answering? Why did you not leave a key? Because I didn't agree to watch your kids, I said. Anna cut in. You're their uncle. Stop pretending you have no responsibility. We're allowed to take a trip once in a while. Then arrange childcare, I said. You don't drop them on a doorstep. She actually laughed. You're so dramatic. They were fine. They weren't fine, I said. Mrs. Morgan said Lucia could barely talk when she brought them inside. Oscar groaned like this conversation was ruining his day. Okay, look, you need to stop blowing this up. Just go get them. I can't, I said. I'm several states away. You should have stayed home this week, he said. See? This is why communication matters. I communicated, I said. You ignored it. Anna's voice sharpened again. We're not leaving this airport. Do you know how much these tickets cost? We're not missing the Auroras because you can't handle 2 kids. They're your kids, I said. Family helps family, Oscar shot back. I'm not your backup parent, I replied. There was a moment of shuffling, and Oscar said, They're calling our group. We're boarding. You need to figure this out, man. I'm not figuring anything out, I said. You created this mess. Edward, stop being selfish, Anna said. We deserve this trip. The entitlement in her voice was incredible. You left your children outside in winter weather, I said calmly. This isn't about a trip, Oscar hissed. You always act like you're better than us. Like your little subtitle job makes you some big responsible adult. It makes me responsible enough not to abandon children, I said. He replied with a sharp, we're done talking. Fix it. Then he hung up. I stood there staring at the phone. My pulse didn't spike, but something cold settled in my chest. They weren't going to help. They weren't even going to pretend. Fine. I dialed my father next. Patrick answered with his usual irritation. Why are you calling? It's late. Timothy and Lucia were left outside my house, I said. Oscar and Anna dumped them on my steps and went to the airport. They were out there in that cold long enough that Mrs. Morgan found them shaking. He sighed like I was inconveniencing. Edward, you always exaggerate things. I'm not exaggerating anything, I said. They were outside in the cold. He clicked his tongue. You should have planned better. You knew your brother had a trip. I told everyone I'd be out of state this week, I said. He ignored it. That's because you say everything in that sarcastic tone, he replied. You confuse people. I had to pause to keep from laughing. He abandoned his kids. They were at your home, Patrick snapped, which is safe. They weren't in danger. Mrs. Morgan said they were freezing. Mrs. Morgan is dramatic, he said, and you always take her side. I take the side of basic logic, I said. Oh, stop, he said sharply. You're single. You don't have to juggle anything. Oscar and Anna have real responsibilities. You should have stayed home to help. They are your kids. Handle them. Your family, he repeated. You should help. This is your fault for not being around. When he hung up, I didn't bother calling Madeline. I already knew her script. She'd blame me, defend Oscar, and tell me I should just fix it. Everyone else had made their choices. None of them were going to help Timothy or Lucia, which meant the next step was on me. But not in the way they expected. I opened my phone again. Time to call someone who actually deals with child neglect. Time to get real help. I was done being the only adult they could dump responsibility on, and I was done letting them skate by without consequences. Once I hung up on Patrick, I called the local non-emergency police line. My voice stayed steady because the situation didn't need emotion, just facts. I explained who I was, where I lived, and what Mrs. Morgan had found. 2 children, outside, in freezing weather, for 2 hours, parents unresponsive and currently at the airport. The dispatcher took it seriously. She said they would send officers to check on the kids, and that they would loop in CPS once they had more information. Within minutes, officers were on their way to Mrs. Morgan's house. I called her back to let her know they were coming. She answered on the first ring. Are they sending someone? Yes, I said. Police are on their way. Just stay with the kids. I'm not letting them out of my sight, she replied. They're finally warming up. I could hear soft voices in the background. Lucia's small laugh, Timothy asking something quietly. They were at least safe for now. 20 minutes later, the officers arrived at her door. Mrs. Morgan kept me on speaker as she answered. This is them, she said. They've been here for about an hour now. Before that, they were sitting outside alone. One of the officers asked, where were they found exactly? On Edward's steps, she said firmly, both of them shivering. Their faces were red from the cold. Lucia was crying. The officer spoke to the kids gently, confirming details. How long they waited, whether they saw any adults who dropped them off. Timothy answered most of the questions, nervous but honest. Lucia stuck close to Mrs. Morgan. They took official notes, checked their condition, and stepped aside for a short conversation. Edward, Mrs. Morgan said, taking the phone off speaker, they're calling CPS to come get the children. They need to place them somewhere safe. That's the right call, I said. They asked if you're the legal guardian. I'm not, I said, and I'm out of state. She nodded, even though I couldn't see her. Then they'll find the next best placement. That turned out to be Anna's parents, the only adults in the family with a record of stability. Patrick and Madeline weren't even considered. CPS prefers neutral parties when possible, and Anna's parents had no involvement in this mess. They lived in the same state, had space, and had a good relationship with the kids. Later that night, CPS arrived. They spoke with the officers first, then with Mrs. Morgan, and finally with the children. The caseworker kept her voice calm but firm. We're going to take you somewhere safe tonight, she said. You'll stay with your grandparents for now. Timothy nodded slowly. Lucia held her blanket tighter. Before they left, the caseworker took a detailed statement from Mrs. Morgan. She explained the timeline clearly. When she first noticed the kids outside, how long they were exposed, their physical condition, and the fact that Oscar and Anna were unreachable. The officer added, given the weather and the duration, this meets criteria for neglect and endangerment. Mrs. Morgan didn't argue. I'm aware. They also took down my number and confirmed my location. I verified again that the parents were mid-travel and had refused to come back. By the time CPS took the kids to Anna's parents' home, it was close to midnight. Mrs. Morgan called me once they were gone. They're safe, she said. That's the important part. Thank you, I said. You did everything right. You better believe I did, she said. Someone had to. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of notifications. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, all from Oscar and Anna. They'd apparently landed in Helsinki, turned their phones back on, and discovered CPS had contacted them. Oscar's first voicemail was all yelling. What did you do? They're saying neglect. They're saying the kids were exposed. Why would you report us? We told you to handle it. Anna's was even worse. You ruined our trip. They're making us come back early. This is your fault, Edward. You're sick for doing this. They hadn't learned a single thing. While they ranted from across the world, CPS sent me an update far more professional than anything Oscar ever managed. They had already substantiated the neglect allegation and formally opened the case. Placement with Anna's parents was approved. Mandatory interviews were scheduled for when Oscar and Anna returned. Later that afternoon, Mrs. Morgan texted me. They asked more questions. I told them everything. Do not worry. Her testimony was strong, detailed, and believable. She wasn't emotional. She was factual, which carried more weight than anything Oscar and Anna could claim later. Through all this, I kept working on my subtitles. It wasn't easy concentrating, but I pushed through. I wasn't going to let their chaos drag down my job, too. I finished my work shift, closed my laptop, and sat back. The fallout was coming. Oscar and Anna weren't going to walk into CPS with humility. Patrick and Madeline were going to blame me for everything again. The entire family would turn it into a circus, but at least the kids were safe. And for the first time in days, that was enough. I wasn't done acting, but the next move wasn't mine. It belonged to the people who caused this mess in the first place. My phone didn't stop vibrating the entire following morning. Patrick and Madeline were already on the attack before I even finished my hotel breakfast. Patrick's first message, "You betrayed this family." Madeline followed with, "Christmas is ruined because of you." Then another from Patrick, "Your brother is devastated. You should be ashamed." I didn't bother replying. Their version of devastated meant Oscar and Anna were being inconvenienced for the first time in their lives. Eventually, Patrick called in full dramatic mode. "Edward, how could you?" he demanded. "How could you allow the police to get involved? Your brother is heartbroken. They left their kids outside in freezing weather for 2 hours," I said. "That's why the police are involved." Madeline jumped in on speaker. "You always twist things. Those children were at your home. You should have been there." "I told you I was on a business trip," I said. "You didn't say it clearly," she insisted. "Everyone thinks you overreacted." "Everyone meaning you and Dad," I said. Patrick huffed. "You've embarrassed our whole family. Just fix it." "I'm not fixing anything," I said. "Oscar and Anna caused this." Their silence told me they didn't even consider that possibility. I ended the call. There was nothing more to say. 2 days after I got home, the pounding on my apartment door rattled the frame. Oscar's voice exploded through the hallway. "Edward, open this door!" Anna screamed over him, her pitch bouncing off the walls. "We know you're in there! Don't play games!" I walked over and opened the door, just enough to show my face, not enough to let them in. I planted my foot behind it so neither of them could push through. Oscar lunged forward anyway. "Move!" I didn't budge. "Take a step back. I'm not asking." He froze, shocked I didn't back down. Anna jabbed a finger near my face. "You destroyed our trip. Do you even understand what you did?" "What you did," I corrected, "was abandon 2 kids on an ice-cold doorstep. Let's not rewrite history." Anna sputtered. "They were fine. They looked like penguins auditioning for survival," I said. "Cut the crap." Oscar slapped the doorframe. "Why weren't you home?" "Because I told everyone, including you, that I was out of state," I said. "Was that unclear, or is listening optional in your marriage?" Anna scoffed. "Oh, there he goes. Mr. Perfect, Mr. Responsible." "Sweetheart," I said, leaning forward slightly. "You two couldn't even handle opening a weather app before ditching your kids." Oscar's face reddened. "You should have left a key." "And you should have left a babysitter," I shot back. "But here we are." Anna practically choked. "We missed the Northern Lights because of you. And I missed 2 days of peace because you treat your kids like luggage," I said. "Looks like we're all having a rough week." Oscar tried shoving the door again. "Let us in." I raised my hand. "No, this is as far as you go. Think of this threshold as the boundary you've avoided your entire life." Anna gasped. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said. "I'm consistent. You'd be amazed what happens when you try it." Oscar jabbed a finger at my chest. You called CPS. I tilted my head. No, genius. The police called CPS. I just supplied the truth. If that hurts your feelings, take it up with reality. Anna's eyes bulged. We trusted you. You trusted me with nothing, I said. You used me like free childcare with no notice. That's not trust. That's laziness. Oscar spat. You think you're better than us because you sit at a computer typing subtitles? Funny thing, I said. Even typing subtitles requires more responsibility than you two showed last week. Anna's jaw dropped. You're disgusting. Bold words from a woman who left her daughter shivering on concrete, I said. Careful before irony slaps you on the way out. They both went silent for a moment, which was rare. Oscar tried again. Help family, Edward. That's what family is for. Family doesn't dump kids like unwanted mail, I said. Family doesn't leave their kids to freeze while sprinting to an airport latte. Family doesn't expect me to clean up their disasters on demand. Anna shouted, We needed that trip. And your kids needed parents, I replied. Guess which one wins? Oscar tried one last push past the door, and I leaned forward just enough to stop him. You have about 3 seconds to step back, I said calmly, because the next call I make is to the cops, and I guarantee they're less patient than I am. Anna grabbed Oscar's arm. Let's go. He's loving this. Actually, I said, smiling, I'm just enjoying watching accountability hit you for the first time. She dragged him a few steps away. He kept glaring, breathing hard like he wanted to swing at the air. As they turned to leave, I added, and in case it wasn't obvious, thank Mrs. Morgan. She saved your kids while you two were out taking vacation selfies. Anna muttered something unintelligible. Oscar flipped me off. I closed the door before they finished their tantrum. CPS did not drag their feet after the confrontation. Over the next few weeks, the official paperwork started coming through, piece by piece, confirming everything they had already put in motion from the beginning. The substantiated neglect finding, mandatory parenting classes, supervised visitation, and routine home checks. And like predicted, Oscar and Anna lost their minds. I woke up to 15 messages in under an hour. Oscar, you just had to file everything, didn't you? Anna, the caseworker talked to my parents. They're horrified. Are you happy? Oscar again, we're not doing supervised visits. Not happening. And my favorite, from Anna, all of this is your fault. We didn't do anything wrong. Right. Leaving 2 children to turn into popsicles on my stoop was apparently nothing wrong. My parents chimed in too, because of course they did. Patrick, the whole family is in chaos because of your stubbornness. Madeline, your brother is suffering emotionally. Fix this now. Isher, the victim shifting was so extreme it could have been classified as a sport. Meanwhile, the caseworker kept checking in. She walked me through what the next few months would look like. Classes, home checks, supervised visits, reports that had to be written and signed by people who did not care about our family drama. She did not sound angry or emotional, just tired in a way that said she had seen versions of my brother before. At one point, she added, almost as an aside, that the children were adjusting well at their maternal grandparents' home and that they already seemed calmer there than they had in their own house. Good. Somebody in this mess deserved stability. Later that evening, I got a call from Anna's father, the first reasonable adult in this entire bloodline. Edward, he said, voice heavy. I just want to thank you. If Mrs. Morgan hadn't found them, I don't want to think about it. I'm just glad they're with you, I said. That's what matters. He sighed. The kids told us this wasn't the first time they'd been left waiting somewhere. Not like this, but similar patterns. I closed my eyes briefly. That one hit harder than anything else. So this wasn't new. Just the first time it got caught. He continued, We're ashamed it got this far. And for what it's worth, we appreciate you not trying to take custody yourself. You handled it the right way. Trust me, I said. I don't want custody. I want them safe. And I want accountability. You're getting that, he said. Finally. Oscar and Anna, however, were allergic to accountability. They showed up outside the supervised visitation center 2 days later and immediately started yelling at staff for being biased. Oscar sent me a voicemail afterwards saying he'd never felt more disrespected. I didn't respond. Actions have consequences. Apparently that was a foreign concept to them. Meanwhile, Patrick and Madeline escalated their nonsense. Madeline called me while I was eating dinner. You should be ashamed of yourself, she said. Your brother is broken. You do not treat family this way. You fix family. You protect family. I said, Mom, I protected the only people who actually needed it. You humiliated your brother, she shot back. Good, I said. Maybe humiliation will do what common sense didn't. She gasped like I'd slapped her with a frozen trout. Edward, Mom, I cut in. Those kids could have died. They didn't, she snapped. So this is excessive. I laughed once. Of course. Because in your world, nobody's wrong except me. Correct, she said. She actually said that out loud. That conversation ended with her shouting something about me being poisoned by selfishness. I hung up before she got to her signature, "I didn't raise you this way" speech. She absolutely did. A day later, Anna's mother called again. Her voice was calm but drained. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that the CPS worker spoke with Oscar and Anna again. They're not taking this seriously." "I'm shocked," I deadpanned. She ignored the sarcasm. "We told them we won't lie for them." They were furious. "I'm sure they were," I said. "And the kids asked about you," she added. "They wanted to know if they were in trouble." I exhaled slowly. "They're not in trouble, not even a little." "I told them that," she said softly, "and they asked if they could send you a message." A minute later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Timothy. "Hi, Uncle Edward. Thank you for helping us." And below it, a doodle of a little house with a warm light in the window. I stared at that text for a long moment, not because I was emotional, but because it confirmed exactly why I didn't let my family gaslight me into silence. Doing nothing would have been easy, but doing nothing also would have been wrong. As part of those findings, CPS made it clear that Oscar and Anna would not regain normal visitation until all classes were completed, home inspections passed, and the caseworker approved ongoing visits. Whatever narrative helped them sleep at night, I guess. Meanwhile, my parents ramped up their delusion. Patrick sent a final message. "If your brother loses custody, it'll be on your conscience forever." I didn't reply. It wasn't worth the keystrokes. Because here was the truth. Oscar and Anna didn't lose custody because of me. They lost custody because they were bad parents. CPS didn't care about family politics. Police didn't care about family politics. Anna's parents didn't care about family politics. Mrs. Morgan sure as hell didn't care about family politics. I was the only one who ever saw the situation clearly. Not because I'm special, but because I wasn't blinded by loyalty to people who had none for me. Christmas hit quietly. Just snow outside, warm lights across the street, and actual peace. For the first time in years, I had a holiday without being pulled into someone else's crisis. No guilt, no chaos, no lectures. I sat by my window that night, watching the snowfall, the city muffled under the cold. Somewhere across town, two kids were safe with grandparents who cared enough to step in, and for the first time, they had a barrier protecting them from their own parents' stupidity. A barrier named me. And if that meant the rest of the family hated me forever, fine, let them. I wasn't losing sleep over any of them. I closed the blinds, turned off my phone, and enjoyed the one thing my family never gave me: peace. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.